Hey there, and welcome to That's Audacious, where we share entrepreneurial stories from amazing leaders to inspire and motivate you to be bold, brave, and audacious. I'm your host, Lauren Clemett, the brand navigator, here to share stories that will make you say, well, that's audacious. Welcome to another episode of That's Audacious, and with us in the podcast today is the fabulous Melissa Williams. She's the CEO of Learning Dimensions Network, which is an award-winning corporate training organisation that specialises in leadership, safety and cultural change learning solutions. Melissa has over 20 years of experience in this field and specifically in adult learning and instructional design, and she's incredibly passionate about helping people create engaging and impactful training programs, which they also create themselves, that drive transformational change. Melissa, it's fabulous to have you on the podcast today. Tell us a little bit about where you've come from and how you've got to where you are today.
Thank you for the beautiful, beautiful introduction. So I'd say, I hated school with a passion. And, like a real passion. And what I discovered, I got through school, but I didn't thrive. I'd say I survived, slightly suffered. And when I got into my 20s, I discovered that, it wasn't me. It was actually the environment of school that didn't suit me. So from my early 20s, fast forward decade upon decade upon decade, I've spent my career looking at, well, how do people learn and how can you create learning solutions? So whether that be training programs or presentations or whatever it is, how can you create learning solutions that actually follows what's called the natural cycle of learning that applies to everybody and doesn't miss anyone? Because the last thing I want is anyone to have a belief that they can't learn or that they're dumb, or that they're stupid, because that's just not true. It's just the learning environment didn't suit them. So my career has been busting those beliefs that people have, and I feel really fortunate to be able to do that.
Brilliant. That's a story we hear a lot, isn't it? That people say,
Yeah.
oh, I hated school, or
Yeah.
I hated maths, or I hated a particular subject, or I had a really bad teacher. And it's funny, isn't it, that whole drudgery that we seem to have coming through school. And I know being dyslexic, I really struggled with understanding how it all worked. But I had a good teacher who actually said to me, look, I don't think you're going to be able to learn the same way that the other kids do, which wasn't a negative thing. He just said, we need to find a different way. We need to find a different way for you to learn. That in the 70s would have been relatively rare, I guess, to have that.
What a gift you had. Right. I all credit to teachers, right? All credit to teachers. Teachers are measured, though, often on the results their students get. So the system has some significant flaws in it. But you've got these teachers like the one you had that truly understands learning and actually understands that the influence they have on kids can be lifelong. And just as you're telling me, decades later, you can tell me about that story. What a legacy. What a legacy. And, all credit to him for understanding that you were one smart cookie. It's just the environment with you learn a bit differently. I've got dyslexia in my family as well. But as my son says, my letters dance, Mum. Yours don't. How lucky am I that my letters dance with my dyslexia because they move. You don't have that gift.
Isn't that beautiful? I love that.
Love it.
It's listening to this and they've either had learning difficulties or they're really resonating with the story. Isn't it nice to know that you're not alone? Isn't it awesome to know that it's actually not you that's broken, it's the system that's broken?
It's the system that's broken. And, we do a lot of work, well, all of our work is predominantly in corporates, and we do a lot of work in construction. And traditionally what would happen is that, you'd go to school and your option was to go to do a TAFE course if you weren't going to go to uni. So a lot of people that work in construction came through that TAFE environment. And we do corporate non-accredited as well as accredited. We're an RTO as well. So we do accredited training in Australia as well. And we get these people in the room, and as soon as they realise it's formal education, it's like they've reverted back to school. Like, they put their head down. You can actually almost hear it saying, please don't call me, please don't call on me. And these are senior people, but they have this belief that the system taught them. And then flip forward to when they get their certificate for in leadership and management or their diploma in workplace safety. And it's like, for me, I often go to those ceremonies at the end, and I'm like, you know what? It's not about the certificate. It's about you just discovered what's possible for you. You just discovered that if learning is done correctly, as in from a design perspective and teaching perspective, you know, the world is your oyster.
Amazing. So you worked with LDN a long time ago, didn't you?
I did. I was their first employee. How's that? We've been around 30 years, right? So first employee. And then I went out into the big wide world of corporate, and I ended up as a global general manager of a training organisation. So we were working across 26 countries. And then I was travelling 260 nights a year and wanted to come back to Australia for a bit of a life. And I ended up coming back as their CEO, and then fast forward, and now I own it. It's like the toothpaste ad, you know. I bought the Colgate ad, I think it is. Can't remember.
It does get in.
Yeah, it does get in, right? So yeah, fast forward, and now I own the company.
Brilliant. So if someone was listening and they are involved in human development, human resources, you know, development of their team, leadership training, that sort of thing, what's some of the tips you would advise them in terms of how to choose the right training organization to work with in order to really get proper embedded results into their culture and into their workplace?
The first question I'd ask them is, what is your instructional design? So your design of training. What methodology do you use, and how do you know that it's researched, valid, and it works? Because what you find is a lot of design of training is quite organic, but it's not done to follow the natural cycle of learning. So that would be the first thing I would do. Validate, how are they going to design this training that you're going to deliver, that they're going to deliver for you. The second one would be, I would actually ask to see some of the facilitators. See how they engage the audience, see how they build application, or get testimonials about the facilitators, because, you know, a well-designed program also needs to be done well. And then also ask them, how do you evaluate? Beyond the happy sheets, beyond the actual, you know, evaluation, we call them happy sheets, at the end of the program. How do you know it works? And so I think they would be the main ones, but I'd also go for someone that's a specialist. A lot of organizations say they do certain things, but really, do they go deep? Right? If you're going to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in learning and development, make sure it's going to work. Do the due diligence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of effort and time and I guess money as well that's invested if it doesn't work and doesn't actually change the culture or doesn't improve the safety or doesn't improve the leadership.
Yeah, it's got to work. It's got to actually shift behavior. But it's got to not only shift behavior, to shift behavior, you have to look at beliefs, you have to look at attitudes, you have to look at mindset in order to shift behavior. So for example, if I don't believe what I'm going to do at work will get me hurt, I'm not going to change my behavior. I'm going to do as I've always done. If you don't shift people at a belief level, go get a library book, because it's going to actually have the same impact, because the behavior won't change.
Yeah.
So programs design needs to be layered when you're looking at shifting beliefs and shifting behavior or shifting culture. And you have to be relentless and rigorous in the follow-up, in the embedding stage, because, you know, behavior takes time to embed in a culture, and culture takes time to shift. So you can't do it as a one-hit wonder.
No.
And I think that's the other thing I would also recommend. I would never go, and I'm not just saying this because we're a larger company, but I'd never go for a company that was a single provider, like a one-man band. And the reason I'd say that is, what if they get sick? What if there's an emergency? What if they can't deliver? Right? You need to have a company that has enough bench strength that if someone gets sick, they can have someone that's already upskilled and ready to go, because you might have 20 people sitting in a room that you've flown in from all around Australia and you don't have a facilitator.
Yeah, not very helpful. Here, watch
Not
this
helpful.
video. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
On that note, I know something happened during the pandemic where all of a sudden everything went online. And then there was a real shift, wasn't there? There was this, maybe we don't have to fly our team around the country. Maybe we can just do everything on computers. But I know you've got some recent research around that. What have you discovered about online learning, Melissa?
Yeah, so I was asked by a client to run, it was close to 50 focus groups. It was almost 500 people across every single job role of an organisation. And what I was eliciting learning needs. What is it that they need in the space of leadership to actually improve? Best thing you can do is actually ask the people, right? So one of the questions I asked in the focus group was, out of this initiative, what would you not want to see? Because often people can articulate what they don't want better than they can articulate what they do want, right? Every single person, not one, didn't say this. Every single person says, I do not want self-paced online learning. So, which surprised me. So, of course, I casually go, why? And there were 3 or 4 key reasons they came up with. The first one was, when you've just issued an online, self-paced online learning module, you're expected to do it in your own time. But people are already full. When am I going to do it? And then you get this mandatory thing from the organisation saying you haven't done it yet. So then the learning objective becomes, how do I sit through this and go click, click, click so that I can get them off my back, as opposed to actually learn? So that was the first thing. The second reason was, we know that learning requires connection. To go deep in and actually integrate something from a learning perspective, you need connection. Self-paced online learning is one way. There's no connection. And it has to be created for the general masses, because it costs so much to create, which means it's not necessarily relevant. So again, the objective becomes, how can I get through this fast?
Yeah,
And
bites, isn't it? It's not actually learning, it's just getting it done.
Yeah. And the other major reason was, they said, it seems to be just another thing that the organisation is expecting, as opposed to investing in me. So what they wanted instead was face-to-face training, or if it couldn't be face-to-face training, on Zoom or Teams or Google Meet, whatever it is, but in small groups where they can have that connection. And they said that way they can carve out time. And if they can carve out time, they can focus on one thing for once. So post that, I went and actually asked other organisations just to make sure that it wasn't just this one corporate that I was working with. The message was the same. We want to shift back to having connection, because life is so much about sitting at a computer. Life is so much about emails. It's about one-way communication, and we want that connection. We want to actually have a dialogue when it comes to learning.
We're humans and we need to connect with other humans. It's funny, isn't it?
Who knew?
Who knew? Who knew? If you are enjoying this conversation, there are lots of other episodes about That's Audacious and incredible people doing amazing things on most of the podcast channels. You'll find it wherever you want to look for That's Audacious. Melissa, one of the things that you've been doing more recently is really profiling your own personal brand as a thought leader in this space of how we actually learn. What have you been doing, and why did you decide that that was something that you needed to do?
It's a really good question. I have avoided it for decades. I'll be really honest. Many times I'll go, oh, don't make me. But what I know is the more people I can reach and shift their beliefs around the ability to learn, the better it's going to be. So I kind of put my big girl pants on and decided, okay, let's get a bit more visible in terms of sharing what we know. You know, there's 30 years of research and data and evidence around what works that we've done, not to mention the researchers we work with. And I'm like, it's time to put my big girl pants on and actually be visible and actually share what I know. So brilliant. There you go.
I love it. And you've won some awards for what you're doing. Tell us what have the awards done for you and for your organisation?
I think I was thinking about it earlier today. I think what the awards do is that it just validates what you're doing works. So it's public validation that you're on the right path. And, you know, I think in Australia, we tend not to want to big note ourselves. We tend to want to just, you know, keep going, head down, bum up kind of thing, which has been my worldview. And I've discovered, you know, as we work more internationally, that the awards actually work in terms of credibility, in terms of people saying you stand out. There's evidence that what you do works and that you're a quality provider. So I think that's the major benefit the awards have had. I think the two major awards that we've won that I treasure most, one is we won the best place to work in 2025. So Workplace Culture Award. And the reason I love that one the most is it wasn't so much about our award submission, it was about the interviews with the team. And I think when you're going to consult in workplace culture, you've got to walk the talk, right? You've got to have a good workplace culture for yourself. And the fact that my team love what they do and feel validated and it's inclusive, and yes, it's challenging, but you know what, we're a community and we belong and mistakes are okay and everyone's got each other's back. So that was probably, from a personal perspective, the fact, A, walk the talk, but B, my team loves what they do. And the second award is a most recent one where we won a global award, the best work health safety training program for Australia, Asia and New Zealand. And I am so thrilled for that, because when you work in safety, you ultimately do it because you want to prevent harm. You want people to go home, ideally, better than they came to work. You know, I often hear people that have worked in safety and seen fatalities and injuries, that an injury and lifelong pain is often worse than death. And when you work in this space, you want it to work. So to have that acknowledgement, and we were working with WeBuild, a global construction company based out of Italy, and we adapted their program to Australia. To have that award means that we're doing our part to keep people safe, and that means a lot.
Yeah, the impact you talk about is just, it gives me goosebumps when you talk about changing people's lives and people coming home from a workplace better than when they arrived, let alone being safe.
How cool is that?
I mean, hello, it should just be standard, shouldn't it? But I mean, yeah, that's the whole point of this. I love also the fact that you talk about, you know, if you want to make a bigger impact, you have to put that courageous hat on, those big girl pants on, to go, you know, this is bigger than me. It's about creating a better place for everyone to work and live and so on. So
I often say you've got to get out of your own way. Be brave, be audacious. How about I use that word? Be brave, be audacious, be authentic, be humble, be grateful, and just do it.
Oh, goosebumps. That's fabulous. Now, Melissa, we've come to the end, unfortunately, of this very short conversation. I love what we shared today. We always ask our guests the same question. If you could go back in time to somewhere where you first started and what you're now doing, what advice would you give yourself?
Stay with it. Stay on the course. Don't give up. Be more visible. Because the more you do that, the more you're going to shift the world of learning and development. And from my perspective, that means more people are going to reach their potential.
Lovely, lovely. It is that ripple effect, isn't it?
It is. And I don't want to be a bit Pollyanna, but it's like when you actually see, we work with thousands of people a year, and when they actually discover they can learn, it was just the system didn't suit them, they truly do shift. That's great.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it. Melissa, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you for having me.
If you like what you've heard on this podcast today, please subscribe, but also listen out for the other episodes. And remember, you do deserve to be well known, well paid, and wanted. Thanks so much for listening to the That's Audacious podcast. Remember, there's no place for modesty in business, and you do deserve to be well known, well paid, and wanted. For more episodes, please subscribe to the podcast on your favourite channel or follow us online. The links are in the description below.